could be your sanctuary if you're ready tonight. I know that it's all so heavy. Won't you let me inside? 'Cause I could be your sanctuary.
What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In today's video we're going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin, then into the New York Stock Exchange, and then the 7 altcoins that I've been going over recently. Let's go ahead and get things started here for this very important update for Bitcoin. This is going to be a main focus here on this weekly chart for Bitcoin in this video. So the main thing that I first off want to point out here is these two black trend lines that are setting up this range right here, and what you're going to want to fixate on are these bubbles. So you have these 3 yellow ones with the 2 arrows, and this is indicating you can lump these the second and the third bubbles into like one bubble if you wanted to. Like, I guess actually, I'm gonna go and do that. So like, think about it, something kind of like that. You can look at it almost as kind of like a double top in a way, but you can see how after the high of 2017, this range of these two black trend lines became major resistance into this bear market. Got a relief rally, slightly broke it, set a double top. You could even you could look at this as kind of like a bull trap if you want to. Came back below it, and then we made a double top on it, and then found resistance into this Black Swan event, this March crash, which is what it lined up with the COVID pandemic. So what we see here is that 3, or again, you can look at it as 2. So these major areas right here of resistance that we saw in the previous, so what we're looking at here, starting from 2017 once more, again, going to where we currently are, this is phase 1 of Bitcoin's cycle system. Again, if you're new to my content, I'll have the first card that's linked at the beginning of this video will have me more elaborately going over my theory on Bitcoin and its harmonic price structure. But again, you can see how we come down each of these times when we meet this general area right here. For these 2 drops, for the most part, we found support along this upper turquoise trend line. We did have this major wick here for the March crash. But then right here, we got a massive sentiment change after the March crash, leading into this like almost flag-like kind of wavering towards the upside, build up towards this blue bubble, and we essentially it's like a snake-like consolidated around this right here, kind of just spiraling around it almost, until we finally broke it, and then completely obliterated the whole sentiment of this. Again, these 2 black trend lines right here acting as overall resistance. So leading into the second half of phase 1 for Bitcoin, we flipped this into resistance, or my bad, we flipped this resistance into support right here, made our bull market double top right here, and we've come down, and we have once more, again, you can see right here where this last blue bubble, we met this same black trend line. We've also met this upper turquoise trend line, which goes all the way back here to June, July, August of 2017, and the final support that we saw before we had this final impulse wave right here set up to the high of the 2017 top. So right here, but basically we're getting, so as I've already gone over the black trend line range and this turquoise trend line range, it's 2 areas of major confluence so far. So if I go ahead and zoom in here on, we're on the current price structure, we'll find, so outside of that, the next thing that I want to point on is, which I've been going over in my recent videos, is this most major, this final, these other 2 black trend line ranges. The final, and also I'm using just normal candles in this video. Typically throughout the entirety of my channel, I've always used the Heiken Ashy candles because I just like the way they are. They're more fluid and they look less clunky than the candles, but I wanted to use this chart because, again, it leads into what I was just speaking about. Of this area right here, you can see, looking right here, we've broken above this and we've closed on it, found support. We've got this major candle towards the upside right here, which I believe is very, very massive. Even if I take it to the 2 weekly real quick, we can see we I mean, we got the same thing right here as well. So I mean, that's just great to see. Personally, I would say that this is confirming the bull market, in all honesty. I mean, this goes back to, I mean, the two major resistance points of 69,000, so the overall previous bull market top, and then the intermediary consolidation high at 48,000, approximately, down to this descending bottom range we've made, which also nicely throughout this we have made this very nice M pattern at the bottom, and then we'll likely, with that arrow, shoot up towards the upside. So again, just to go ahead and entertain all the possibilities here, because at the end of the day, who knows if this is actually like not a bull trap or something like that. Let's say we get rejected right here in correlation with the fact that this candle has moved right up to this 200 EMA, and also the moving average associated with this purple band you can clearly see. Let's say we get rejected from here and we actually end up going back below this major resistance range of these two black trend lines. We could possibly come down before I get to this lowermost area. Let's say we come down and we test somewhere like right here at around 18.1, which, as you can see, pretty clearly lines up with this area. Again, I'll circle it again, this area right here, in terms of finding support. If we could come lower and then hit this black range again somewhere within this area, which would be roughly around 17,000. But outside of that, worst case scenario, we come down and we test this again. This would bring in the third area of confluence, especially if we actually end up going down. So with these two yellow trend line ranges of this M pattern, this descending bottom range we've been setting since about June of last year, we could come down and test the top of this at around 15.6 thousand, which would line up with the bear trap that I have been mentioning in every single one of my recent videos, which would just directly line up, as you can clearly see right here, with the previous low that we set. Outside of that, lowest most part of this lines up with going down to approximately 13.6, 13.5 thousand, which lines up with, in similarity, the COVID, or just a March crash back here, all the way wicking down to this lowermost area of this turquoise range. Again, so if, let's say we don't get that bearish outcome and we go towards the upside here, the next range very likely that we'll see is 28 to around 32,000, which, as you can clearly see, this is just what lines up with this very important area right here. I mean, that's obviously the next area where price is going to go, and then once we do hit this area, assuming this happens, we consolidate here for a bit, and then we continue to go up right here. We'll then come down and test it to find support, and then actually enter into the next bull market. We also did get, which I believe is another great thing to be seeing here, zooming in, we got this 200 EMA crossing above this moving average associated with this band, so it's also another good bullish note to see as well. One other thing I want to point out is that this turquoise trend line range right here associated with the two macro bottoms for the previous, so the first half of the phase one that we're currently in, starting from 2017 top to current price, where we very likely, I believe, my personal opinion is that we have already seen the actual bottom. I don't think we're going to go any lower. If we do continue to see a drop substantially towards the downside, I'm more inclined to see it being that bear trap to the previous lows we've already set instead of going lower. But I mean, this goes all the way back. This trend line range right here, again, I've mentioned in my previous videos, these two turquoise ones. I mean, this one just about nearly goes all the way back to the inception. I mean, it goes all the way back to the second cycle of Bitcoin, starting from it. It went a little bit farther back on this. This isn't the index chart, obviously, but this top would have been somewhere like, well, I'll go ahead and try to draw it in, somewhere about like right here. This is about what it would have been, and then it kind of went down like that, basically. At around $30 was this top, and then from here towards inception to this top was the first cycle, and then we enter this W into this lightning bolt into this valley to the 2017 top. That would be the second cycle for Bitcoin. And then again, just to quickly go over it, you see this W right here. We get the second bottom of this W. We have the upwards outburst of the ending of the bullish leg, so the last bullish leg of the W pattern. Then we enter this lightning bolt pattern right here which is just what lines up with this previous lightning bolt pattern back here. But again, to go ahead and get back to this turquoise trend line range that I'm mentioning, back here you can see this trend line range was where price consolidated in, and the culmination point of this bear market being confirmed and ensuing down to 2014, 2015, and that sideways range we set. Again, let's go ahead and point it out here. You can see another M right here. Then we start to see our bull market ensue right there, which again just goes back to this M that I have right here, bull market ensuing, and then you could even doesn't really look like it too much right here. I'm gonna go a little bit lower and see. So, but yeah, okay, you can see it nicely on this 4-day chart. So you see this right here, you see this M right here, and then you see a W. As I mentioned previously in multiple videos, W's and M's are the most fundamental patterns when it comes to not only just cryptocurrency but the stock market as well. A lot of times, you know, you have your traditional W, something like that. You have your traditional W, or M, something like that. But a lot of the times you'll see a W form and it'll actually make an M at the double bottom, and then it'll go up, or you'll see something for the M and you'll see a W in the middle part of it. It's essentially what we saw right here, this type of M pattern right here for this double top that we recently set. It's kind of clunky, it wasn't too good, but you could see that right there, and then we go down into this bottom we have currently set. So outside of that, let me go back to the weekly chart here real quick. So being back here on this weekly chart, go ahead and after analyzing all of the reasonings for this to be support, I'm going to jump into these indicators here real quick. I'm going to zoom out so I can go over the MACD first off. Get rid of these real quick. So if we look at this MACD down here, which I actually fortunately forgot to draw it on here, I'll just go ahead and do it real quick. But what we see here is this goes all the way back to February 2021. That lines up with essentially the first top of this double top we got in the previous bull market. So basically what I'm wanting to point out here is you can see this kind of converging area range that we're kind of setting in. I'll again kind of just draw it. We're converging to our point. We've already crossed over the 0 point. Again, that's going to be a very important thing when it comes to the MACD, especially this MACD specifically, but also just in general, it's a good thing to see. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here because I want to show what I have on here. So this is what I was referring to. Again, on the weekly chart, what I find very important about this is we've come up, again, like I said, broke above the 0 point. We hit this point right here, this descending resistance so far in terms of a range of trend lines. And so far we're coming down, we're finding support right here. So what would be best to see is we'll find support right here, continue upwards, maybe we'll find some, and we'll likely find some, maybe something like this, or maybe then we'll sit in here for a little bit, and then we'll finally go back up. Something along those lines, just in general. But outside of that, again, I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of these highlights real quick. So going to the RSI here on this weekly chart, what I want to point out here is that you can clearly see, let me take into account the entire history. I'm trying to see, there we go. So you can see this bluemost range down here of this RSI lines up with the overall bear market lows. This pink range up here is going to line up with the highs. My analogy here is just in terms of redshift and blue shift. Whenever something's heading away from a planet, it redshifts, which means it's just losing energy because it's heading away from the center of gravitational pull, or just the singularity, and put singularity in quotations, of that planet or whatever the body is. I mean, especially if it's a black hole or the center of a galaxy, it'd be more accurate to call it a singularity. But anyways, digressing from that, what you can clearly see is we hit our lows right here at the turquoise. We head back up towards the red area, and for the entire bull market we stay in this upper range above the yellow. So basically the basis, the median of the RSI, and how I'm pointing it out here. Set our bull market top, head back to the lowest range, stay way down by the yellow below it, hitting the blue finally, then we break above it and we trade in this upper range to 2017 high. Again, rinse and repeat. Same thing for this bear market. See our relief rally, get dragged back under it again, and then for the bull market of our most recent time, again lining up with pretty much the second half of Bitcoin's phase one. You can look at it as a lightning bolt pattern, or more traditionally known as an ABCD pattern. Again, we see the break above it, we stagger up here the entire time, finally got way down in this intermediary point and finally lost it. This was the 48,000. Also, when you look at the price and look at the RSI, was the major point of rejection here into this bear market ranging low. So what we're seeing here is we've broken above the yellow so far, got rejected on this uppermost yellow, not yellow, but this white dashed line. We came down a little bit, didn't go down all the way to the yellow, which it's a good thing as well. I mean, so essentially, like I said, and like I've been pointing out in my videos, and I'm assuming you've probably already been able to gather at this point, with this white fractal pattern that I'm using, according to the overall cycle structure that I've been going over this entire video, I believe, according to so, we will get highly self-similar price trading with respect to how the previous bull market was from March to this first top up here, and then we'll likely get another double top as well if I had to guess. Again, that is just what lines up with going all the way back to, as I was just mentioning, like it's clearly after we see this top we see a W and then to a lightning bolt pattern, and the reason why it does look different this time around is because of the decay of logarithmic progression over time, which goes into the commonsensical thing of the lengthening of the cycles and the diminishment of gains, and also the diminishment of the downsides because the bear markets are getting less severe over time, but both of them are getting extended in time as well. So what I believe here is, again, so likewise with the price being highly self-similar, what we will see as well, again, so we saw right here, we came up, stagnated in this area, then finally went towards the top. So I believe we'll see the same thing here. We'll stagnate for a little bit during the sideways action, which is lining up with this build-up period, which is this build-up period back here, and then we'll finally go back up towards the upside with regards to that. And then lastly, the stock RSI has moved all the way to the upside, which is a good thing to be seeing because that's what we're going to want to see. We would want to see this stock RSI head up towards this upper range right as the bull market's beginning, so it can stagnate and stagger in this upper range throughout the bull market. Again, that's what we see, right here. It's essentially the same idea as I was pointing out with the RSI, but the difference between the RSI and the stock RSI is that the RSI would be likened as the velocity of price, and the stock RSI would be the acceleration of price, but kind of more predominantly acceleration being a derivative, mathematical derivative of the RSI, which is why I use the stock RSI to further affirm the RSI, and then the MACD to more so strengthen these as well. A lot of people, like whenever you look into in an educational outreach, a lot of times you'll see stock RSI, people say it's not that useful and whatnot, but I feel like it's because a lot of people don't actually mathematically understand what these are actually representing, especially like I've mentioned in the past, looking at them in a physical sense. Like you can imagine price is your car heading, driving down a mountain, and then you head up some, and then you go back down the mountain, and then you head up some, and then the RSI down here is your velocity. So basically your miles per hour in the direction you're going, and then the stock RSI is the acceleration of that velocity, also being a vector in a direction with a scalar quantity of miles per hour or whatever. And then the MACD is just going to be the momentum, which is why the flips along this convergence of zero is highly important. And you clearly can see this final flip right here, which I believe is because we've also, I believe, found support as well above it, like I was mentioning on that other chart with the trend lines I had on the MACD. It lined up exactly with this low that we hit right here, the lowest low along this turquoise trend line range. But to go ahead and get this wrapped up right here, I wanted to take some time, good time to really explain this right here, because I feel like this is a very good explanation of how things have been going recently. But as I've been mentioning, I do think, according to my theory of Bitcoin and whatnot, etc., that in general the next top is going to occur somewhere between 200 to 300,000. when you look at this Heiken, not the Heiken, but this candle chart, it also extends to the Heiken Ashi chart as well. But at this point, I am more inclined to believe that the first top will land more somewhere around approximately 215,000. So what I'm going to say is 210,000 to approximately 227,000. So again, to reiterate, so somewhere around 210,000 to 230,000 is where I believe the first top is going to be set. And then if we do indeed end up getting this second top right here and we go down some more and we come back up a little bit more, let's see here, I'll go ahead and take the rest of this pattern. This may not line up how I really want it to, in all honesty. Okay, so yeah, the next top would be then push up somewhere more around like pushing 250,000. So again, to elaborate on that, for a while, just kind of, obviously, as I just got done saying, 200, 300,000 just in general, somewhere in there. For the most part, up until now, I've been more inclined to believe that the first top would have been more around like 240 to 250,000. Now I'm reiterating it at 210 at worst case scenario, but still obviously a good scenario because it's a bull market. To best case scenario, 230, 227, 230,000. Again, that's lining up somewhere beginning of next year, January, February, and then the double top, if we end up getting that, which I'm going to take this pattern again, would line up with extending somewhere towards August, 6, 7, 8, 9 months into 2024, right? It's specifically lining up around August 26th when it's pushing around 200. I'm just going to go and leave that on there. 250,000. So that wraps up here on this higher time frame update. I'm going to go ahead and get into the lower time frame here. Let's see, I'm going to go to this 12-hour first. So again, I was mentioning this recently. This white descending or falling triangle, falling wedge, however you want to look at it or call it, it adheres to this 12-hour chart. And then we have our black one, which adheres to the 4-hour chart. So going back to the 12-hour, 12-hour got obliterated. We had this kind of fake out. We came up, found beautiful support right here. Saw this big move we've seen within the last like 24 hours. And then going to the 4-hour, we also saw another nice thing. We broke up, found rejection right here. You could essentially look at this as also a similar retest to what I just mentioned previously on the 12-hour. And then we got this major move towards the upside. So all in all that is very good to be seeing here as well. If we go to this daily chart, we are seeing, as you can see, overall, we've come up and we have met this ascending pink trend line range right here. If you look at the RSI, we are getting a bearish divergence, and same thing essentially for the stock RSI and also MACD, as you can see. I don't think I think you should kind of take that with a grain of salt at this point. Again, unless we do enter that bear trap or the bear market low hasn't been set in. But I do believe at this point, again, going back to this chart and this, I feel like, very massive retest and support that we found so far, this long-term trend line being flipped into support, we're just going to continue to see some staggering sideways, like I said, wavering, like almost like a flag towards the upside. But outside of that, again, we are also seeing, so like I just mentioned, we're seeing bearish divergence, but we're also seeing, you can see the slope. I'll go ahead and just draw it in. This slope right here is a negative for that support, but if we go up and we compare that same area to the price, you can obviously see that this is a drastic, just positive support. So that's a hidden bullish divergence. And as I've been mentioning many times, it's something that the DXY did during its escapade towards the top it set recently. It's been on a downtrend within recent months, but what it did was it set like a triple or quadruple bearish divergence. And when it comes to bearish divergences, what will extend the first bearish divergence into a second, third, fourth, fifth, however many there's going to be for whatever you're looking at, what subsequently and sequentially extends those multiplicity of bearish divergences is when the bearish divergence plays out and price goes down, it prints a hidden bullish divergence, which is, it's kind of just beautifully and naturally why it's called a hidden bullish divergence, because it's appearing in a string of bearish divergences, which again, I'm just going to reiterate, is why it's called a hidden bullish divergence. Again, just going to this 12-hour chart, kind of seeing more of a close view of this, how we have, again, tested this up ascending pink range. We haven't tested this 800 EMA yet. There's likelihood we could continue to go a little bit higher here to see one final thrust towards the upside. Then we go back down. We'll meet this 800 EMA, get rejection there, and then if I had to guess, we'll likely, again, assuming we don't go any further, that bear trap doesn't happen, etc., we'll likely kind of just continue until we finally, obviously we're converging upon this 800 EMA and we'll break above it at some point. So, yep, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and jump down here to the hour. So again, right here we see positive resistance slope down here on the RSI. We see negative. Also see the same thing on the stock RSI and the same thing on the MACD as well. So again, bearish divergence, but again, going back to that daily, I would say take it with a grain of salt, along with the hidden bullish divergence that I mentioned and whatnot. And at the end of the day, whenever you see bearish divergences, that doesn't mean, because I feel like a lot of the times when you see people analyze something and they're pointing out a bearish divergence and even a bullish divergence, it applies to both sides of the aisle, obviously. When it comes to a dichotomy, it's usually typically always two sides of the same coin, and like the downsides of a perma bull are just as bad as the downsides of a perma bear. That's why it's good to like entertain both avenues of travel, so you can be prepared for both, because there's only going to be two outcomes. Either the price is going to go down or up. I mean, you could think about a third option, is it going sideways, but for the most part, it's going to go down or up. And that down or up oscillation is what leads it to going sideways. So if we jump in here to this very low time frame on the 5-minute, as I was just watching this recently, so let's get a little bit of a better perspective here real quick. So where I'm zoomed into here on that 5-minute chart is this area. I'm gonna go ahead and circle it. So this area right here. So again, right here on this trend line support right here, which lined up with when we broke the 800 EMA right here. Very important thing to see on this 4-hour chart. So going back again, you can see this massive circle I have right here. We saw this right here. You could have looked at this as almost a type of like like symmetrical consolidation, which ended up breaking up towards the outside. Because again, and actually, I'm going to digress here real quick. I'm going to go to, I'll find it. Okay, on this chart. So I was actually looking at my portfolio recently, and this is essentially what my portfolio looked like. And the reason why I got this massive hammer right here was not like because I was doing bad with trading, which I mean, I would admit it if I was. I literally don't care. But the reason why I got this massive downside is because I removed all of my crypto from the exchange that I use. So, and again, it goes into this little message right here, which you can read yourself. Don't ever, even if it's a bullish bias pattern, like something as a megaphone or even a falling wedge or a falling triangle, don't assume that it's going to break towards the upside. Like, obviously you want to wait for confirmation, which is essentially what we're seeing right here, because this is basically a massive falling wedge is what we're in right here on this chart, as I was mentioning and talking about earlier in that extensive update I did on the weekly. But what you want to do is like this bullish megaphone right here. I mean, you see, most people are gonna be like, oh wow, this is a bullish megaphone. It's gonna go crazy to the upside at some point. But you got to realize, I mean, it could do exactly what it did right here. Come up and find it against this line, which is where we found support at right here. But oh, this time it turned into resistance, and we got the hammer towards the downside. So again, like if I give any advice whatsoever on this channel, don't take every single pattern to be just bullish or just bearish. I believe firmly that each pattern is 50-50 and anything can happen. You need to wait until it finds confirmation and support to bounce towards the upside, or it might, and like a lot of the times things might, like for example, if I go back to this chart real quick, I mean we could have, like for example, actually I'll go to this, good grief, so yeah, I'll just use this. So let's say we, again, likening this back to what would be a falling wedge, falling triangle. So let's say we get another drop towards the downside, and what actually ends up ensuing is we continue to break up higher here, but we get rejected at some point, which would have meant this would have been a massive bull trap, and we come right back down. I mean, that is just as likely as everything else I've been going over in this video, and is why I have entertained everything so far. Okay, but to get back to what I was going over here on this 5-minute chart is, so again, you can see bumping our heads, finally broke above it. Zoom in here. What I was watching is right here. I'll go even lower to the 3-minute real quick. So if I were to go down to the 1 minute, and I'm not going to do it because it's going to make things too slow and I don't want to deal with it, but there was, obviously you can see the way that these candles are forming right here on the 3-minute. There was some sideways, some consolidation right here, which is why I have the trend line drawn right here. So basically what you can see is we were finding, I had this resistance line, we found support roughly with this area, finally broke above it, turned this resistance line in support, continued to go higher here, go back to this 5-minute. Then we got rejected right here, but then we finally broke above this, which again, going back to the 4-hour, which is what lines up with right here. Again, going back to the hour, let's go down on the 5-minute. You're not even going to be able to see it that well, not like it matters anyways, but continue to break up towards the upside right here, and this is when we led into this massive move towards the upside that we've seen so far, hitting this peak at 24. Did it get 20? No, 24.9. I mean, you could essentially 25,000, I suppose. But so far, what we've seen, we saw this right here. We were seeing this support. We fell below it right here. Got approximately rejected right here towards this downside. We printed some pink vectors right here to let us know, signify we were reaching some very oversold territory, which also lined up with hitting this 200 EMA. Also lined up with this this yellow line you see right here, which is a part of, again, Trader's Reality Indicator. It's has to do with basically, it's, well, I'll just generally summarize. It's a very important pivot point, and this appears on like all the time frames if you use that indicator. But what we can see here is along with this support right here, we've come back up and we've hit it. So far it's been rejection, and right now we are trading within, again, what could end up likely being some sort of, perhaps some sort of triangle-esque consolidation, which will then lead to it continuing to go up. Although if I had to guess, again, we can see our uppermost range right here, again going back to this area right here on the 12-hour. So likely, I have to guess we'll probably just continue to go. I mean, we might see another, I don't know, something like that, and eventually go back up towards the downside. Who knows? Given that this is such a low time frame, things could be very sporadic. I mean, we could also, worst case scenario, assuming we don't see that like a bear trap or anything, this continues to move up, this 800 EMA, something like this. Let's say we were to see price, you know, I don't know, do something like that, and then kind of like do something along those lines. But I would say at this point, assuming we don't go substantially down, we won't go below this 800 EMA right here on this 5-minute, which is lining up roughly at around 23. We'll say 23. We'll just, in general, I'll say 23,000 to 23.3 thousand. I'm going to go to the 4-hour. Let's see if that lines up with this range right here. Oh gosh, what did I forgot what I said at this point. 23 point, okay. So again, going back to this, that would line up with coming back down to essentially test. So this range again right here, which obviously it would be a very, very reasonable place to come down and test again. You can see how that was major support right here until we finally fell below it again. So we could very likely come down and actually do something like this. Maybe we'll sit here for a bit and then we'll come back up towards the upside. But right now it's very important that we do see the price finally break above this ascending resistance right here, which is essentially just 25,000, which just goes back to, let's go to this daily. Again, this very importantly lines up with this area right here where we got rejected previously. Again, outside of that on this daily chart, this 800 EMA is at 27, essentially 28,000. So we could likely come up to that, consolidate around it for a little bit, and then continue to push higher towards the 28, 29, 30, 31, 32,000 as I mentioned on the weekly earlier. But that sums up what I wanted to go over here for Bitcoin. It was a very lengthy update, I know. But let's jump in here to the New York Stock Exchange. Again, just to quickly summarize, I believe the decoupling is ensuing. The world is going to go through some massive changes recently. I also generally believe there's only about like approximately 7 years left or so. A little over 7 years left. But to digress from that, which is why I factor in like the decoupling happening, because I think there's going to be a massive technological singularity is on the horizon, basically is what I'm saying. And we're going to see this eventually break towards the downside, I believe. If we don't, and we head towards this blue range of around 16.5 to 17,000, and then continue higher than 17,000, scratch what I said, I'm wrong. But if we start to see price substantially go below 15.7 to 15.8, and then substantially go below 15.3 to 15,000, and then after that, yeah, so 15 to 15.3 thousand, then, which also just lines up with being weighed down by this final moving average right here, so this turquoise one, and then we'll likely come down to the range that I've been mentioning, around 13 to 12,000, which again, just to point it out, ironically lines up with the whole decoupling scenario that I'm pointing out, and the fact that if Bitcoin continues to go up and the New York Stock Exchange goes down, the New York Stock Exchange, or the stock market in general, is going to head towards the price range that Bitcoin would go to if it continued to go down and set lower lows, because it would likely go down to 13 to 12,000 as well, again, if Bitcoin actually ends up going down here as well. But a good early on indicator here that we'll see is you can obviously see how this band right here, so this white and black one, is tightening up. I mean, it's very insanely at this point. So if this starts to flip white, which I do believe it will at some point eventually, then it's going to be a signifier of seeing this drop towards the downside as well. So here for XYO, there's not really too much of massive update to go for the altcoins. In general, everything that I just got done going over for Bitcoin could honestly just be looked at as an update for these altcoins, because I'm sure most of you are well aware of how everything pretty much is adhering to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the fundamental store of value, and where most of these altcoins derive at least around like 60 to 80% of its value from. But so far we are finding nice support along this 800 EMA for XYO. It has seen a small bump towards the upside along with Bitcoin going up recently. I find it's laughable at this point how this symmetrical triangle right here, it's just funny how sideways this has been going. Like, I find it genuinely just like laughable. I chuckle at it every time I see it. But I'd say if we do, like, for whatever reason, see another substantial drop towards the downside, right here would be likely where we could go, which is lines up with testing the previous low essentially. Which I believe if that would happen, I'm inclined to say that Bitcoin would be going down as well. But that doesn't have to happen. This is an altcoin, so it could go down while Bitcoin goes up as well. But again, let's say we find support here. I do believe we'll go to around a penny and a half to 2.5 pennies, which, again, just to reiterate it, is what lines up with the consolidation that XYO made in direct correlation to Bitcoin consolidating from 38 to 48,000, which in general is where the rest of the market in terms of altcoins and tokens will be going towards their next milestone, assuming the market continues to go up. Something I do find interesting is the XYO to Bitcoin chart compared to the XYUSD chart. So the XYUSD chart's has basically seen a bump towards the upside in price over the last like 24 hours so approximately, but the XYO to Bitcoin chart has continued to go down, and we are meeting and have met a very important trend line right here. So this yellow one you can clearly see right here with my cursor. This is what goes all the way back to this major area right here. And you can see how we massively dumped after this and headed basically down to this lowermost range. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if this XYO to Bitcoin chart does substantially start to keep going down and then starts to lose this blue box, heads to the black box, and then loses this white line right here, then I'd be inclined to believe that we might actually head back down towards this area. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if XYO does that and sees a massive drop towards the downside, but Bitcoin continues to go up substantially in its price. Because Bitcoin is going up substantially in its price, XYO could likely still be increasing in value, because as I just got done mentioning, this XYO to Bitcoin chart's been going down while the actual USD value has been going up. So hopefully you see what I'm pointing out there as well. So here for Phantom, again, found nice support along this trend line range right here. You could see was resistance, flipped it into support. Now we're finding support again. So this fractal pattern that I have on here isn't perfectly lined up again, like I've mentioned previously. These fractal patterns are not meant to be literally identical. Sometimes it happens that way, but for the most part they need to be self-similar, because that's just the nature of fractals and the essence of their definition and what they stand for. But if Bitcoin in the market continues to go up from here, then we will likely see, if Bitcoin continues to go up from here, what Phantom is right now is what lines up with like somewhere like right in this area. So we're about to see a next move, major move to the upside as a milestone for Phantom's price. And again, to zoom out for here, according to the fractal pattern, that lines up with around like we'll say 98 cents to around $1.10. If I zoom out all the way here, that is what lines up with going all the way back up to, as you can clearly see here, put a little range around it, and finding resistance along these three major areas right here, where we found support, and we'll sit there for a little bit, consolidate likely, and then continue towards the upside. Again, I do think this coin is going to be one of the best movers, if not maybe the best mover. It moved 2000x during the last bull run, so I'm inclined to believe it will do something very close to that again, leading into $60 to around $90 for the first top. Again, that goes back to what I was mentioning with Bitcoin and the double top, and then the second top would be, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly. Okay, yeah, so yeah, like I said, like $65 to like $90 for the first top, and then like $400 to $420 for the second top. Again, essentially the same time frame that I mentioned for Bitcoin. First top beginning of next year, the first 2 months of next year, and then leading into like 7, 8, 9 months for the second top in the next year as well. Here for JASMY, this is looking just again similar to the way Phantom was moving, with this kind of similar trend line. We got rejection, found support so far every time. Seen a nice move towards the upside recently along with Bitcoin. We're back above the 800 EMA. You can see how we've clearly been consolidating along the around the 800 EMA, which again is this purple or blue, however you see it, moving average. Again, I think the next range we'll head into is this pink range right here, these three price targets, which again, all the price ranges that I'm talking about for all these altcoins is the next milestone for price to head to, is just in generally what directly correlates with Bitcoin when it ranged from 32 to 48,000. So just remember that. Although we could completely shoot straight through this as well, given that anything could happen at the end of the day. Here for Theta, again, essentially the same thing that I went over for JASMY and Phantom, finding support along a similar trend line where you keep one. So far we found one right here, 2, 3, and then 4 basically along this 800 EMA right here for support. This fractal pattern is lining up rather nicely right now. So basically what I believe is, assuming everything continues to go upwards, Theta here is going to continue to see a nice move towards the upside here. Pretty much going upwards for a good period of time, assuming this follows through nicely. Going upwards again for a good period of time until it starts to hit around like I'll just say around $2.15, 20 cents, up to around $2.40 to 50 cents, and then we'll see this right here. But I mean, again, even like that's just a quick drop. I mean, for the most part, if this plays out similar, Theta is going to see a nice move, pretty much parabolically towards the upside up until all the way around like $7.52. Which again, let's zoom out here a little bit. You can see that this area right here that I mentioned lines up nicely with likely. So what we'll see right here is we'll see this 800 EMA move up along with price going up, and we'll find this major quick drop to kind of line up with this 800 EMA. We'll find support there, then continue upwards towards the upside, and then we'll see the next major correction, which is just generally going to line up with everything that happened back here during this major consolidation right here leading into November of 2021, which again is what lines up with Bitcoin being rejected at 48,000. Again, Theta is one of the best movers I've seen so far. This one's, I think, is going to have a very just nice parabolic leap. It's just going to have, I believe, just one top, because if you go back here, it just set one top when you go to November when Bitcoin hit 69,000. They did not continue to go higher, so therefore I believe we'll see one top around 460x, 45,000, 46,000% move towards around $250 to $300 for Theta. Here for TRIAS, TRIAS has been behaving better than a decent amount of the market, and opposed to some of the altcoins I've gone over previously. It has broken out of this ascending, almost ascending triangular-esque range. You can see right here these two blue trend lines with a dash one in the middle. We've already entered into this pink range right here again, which is what just lines up with that consolidation and direct correlation with Bitcoin that I've been mentioning the entire time so far. So likely we could continue to extend up here as high as around $7, or we could blow straight through it. Although, just to zoom out here again, try to set as you can see what lines up with a lot of where we could find consolidation. We could get rejected, or likely around in accordance with this area right here. I don't really know where this one's going to go too specifically for price, because it doesn't have enough price data for me to project it out. So, but here for Dogecoin, again, seen a nice move towards the upside along with most of the market. Again, finding support within the same ascending range it's been finding support in since going all the way back to December of last year, and essentially going all the way back to, at least approximately, all the way back to the lowest bottom it set in October of last year. Again, these three price targets right here line up with if we continue to go lower, so around nearly 8 cents, 7 cents, and then around like 6.5 cents. Right now we want to see Dogecoin continue to push higher, break above 9 to 10 cents, and then continue to push higher towards 11, 12, 13 cents, likely find some consolidation there, and then we'll continue to move towards the upside. Again, for Dogecoin, also one of the better movers, I believe. This one last time moved around 50 to 54,000%, approximately 540x. Assuming we'll see that similar move again, along with the self-similarity that I've been mentioning. I think it could go as high as $20 to $28, $25 to $28, if not $10 to $12, $13. If not that high, then always bank on it going to $1, I believe, and then also in association with that dollar price target, extending as high at around $2 to $3 as well. Again, all kind of lining up. Bitcoin, again, Dogecoin right here is similar to Theta, and then it only made one top, and then it didn't continue to go higher during November when Bitcoin went to 69,000. So I'm inclined to believe that this will see its top along with Bitcoin more towards the beginning of next year. Although these fractal patterns are kind of putting a little confusion in my mind, because this first one right here lines up more towards like August of this year, and then the second one, which this turquoise one I believe is probably going to be the most accurate, is lining up more with October and November of this year. So I'm not really sure. Again, I'm just generally going to say this would likely, I guess, like it even matters. I mean, at this point, again, I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just going over my ideas. But in my own opinion, Dogecoin will likely top out towards the last 2 months of this year, first 2 months of 2024. But again, that was about all that I really wanted to go over in this video. Again, I just want to make a note once more here at the end of this video to not get caught up in the pursuit of money and things like that. I'm going to tie that into the World Economic Forum and this whole social global new world order that they're talking about, and this this social credit score ID, along with factoring into the vaccine passports and things like that in order to travel or even to enter grocery stores and things to buy. But again, I'm going to tie it into the Bible and the book of Revelation mentioning the mark of the beast in order to buy and sell. Again, my whole sentiment is just be careful. Don't accept anything like that. At the end of the day, your soul matters more than anything. And I feel like I've kind of, through looking at my comments and whatnot, I think most of you probably are also Christians yourselves, or maybe some of you are Messianic Jews like myself. But if you are someone listening to this right now and you are open to the Bible, or maybe you have disdain for everything that I'm saying and you're going to unsubscribe now, feel free to go ahead and do it. I don't care. But if you're someone who's open to what I'm saying, if you've noticed in my intro, the 2 Bible verses there, they talk about the book of Acts, being when Peter talks about being baptized in the name of Jesus Christ, that you may receive the remission of your sins, receiving the gift of the Holy Spirit. That ties into Matthew 28, when Jesus is talking to his disciples before he ascends back up to heaven to the Father, saying unto them to baptize them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. It's in the name as in singular, which is why you baptize in the name of Jesus Christ. For example, if somebody baptizes you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ, there's nothing wrong with that. But then the second verse is just 1 John, when it mentions the water, the blood, and the Spirit all being in agreement, which the 3 personages of the triune God of the Bible and of the Hebraic Israelites is the way that he has manifested us within this fleshly fallen existence we live in, that we may find salvation in his Son and the death that he died on that cross and the blood he shed to cover our sins, because there is no other way to make it to heaven, to make it to the Father, but through having faith in Christ Jesus, or Yahushua, and being baptized in his name and receiving the gift of the Holy Spirit, because it is receiving the gift of the Holy Spirit and him indwelling within the forefront, the center, the heart of your soul. That's why you aren't going to pass away into the second death. That soul, or not the soul, but it's that spirit that indwelleth within your soul is what keeps you alive. It's the Spirit of God himself that resides within you that what keeps you alive. But yeah, outside of that, again, that's all that I wanted to go over and touch on in this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed the content. Hopefully you were able to take some things educationally away from this video, and I hope that my preaching in terms of the Bible in this video touches someone's soul. But outside of that, everything being said, I hope all of you have a blessed day.
Ooh, I'm regretting now, won't I see you forever? Such a long time is what we've been through. You're